Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. Thursday here, we got 7 games coming off of 0.4 units that we won. So about $40 for those of you playing along with $100 units. We've got, like I said, 7 games here. I've got 4 bets, plus I've got a ladder with 2 plays on that one that I'm going to get to you guys here in just a second. But let's quickly run through how yesterday went. It wasn't too bad. We were a Miami Heat victory over the sorry Grizzlies away from a really nice night, because you can see Bam Adebayo there, 10 boards and 4 assists, hit cleanly. Should have laddered Bam's rebounds, should have laddered Brandon Miller's points, and went instead with DeJounte Murray, who did not get any of it. Correct pronunciation, DeJounte. By the way, spent a lot of time looking at that after I butchered the crap out of it yesterday multiple times. All right, 3 and 4 is the record. It's a really nice lesson in plus 0.4 units there, showing you that it doesn't really matter what the record is. Records mean poop. Absolute nothing, except for the fact that obviously if you have more wins, you're likely to get more money on your return. But this is strictly about unit sizes and the amount of money, the odds that you play and the juice that you get back on these bets. Every time I say juice, I'm talking about that little number inside the parentheses at the top there for LP Shangoon, for instance, minus 105 on DraftKings, full unit. So that means I'm getting back 96.24, something like that, dollars if this hits, and I put $100 on it. So that's what happened with LP Shangoon. Just so everybody's very clear about how we care about this stuff in betting. Let's look at what the record is on the season. Plus 9.5 units there as we made the 0.4 total on the season. Player props working our way down, up 22.1 because we were up 1.4 units on the player props. As you can see back here on this screen, player props totals 3 and 1, plus 1 and 4 on the day. So we are up to 22.1 units on the season there. And everything else is down on the parlays, ladders, and sides and totals. You can see I'm tracking the ladders with you here because I'm really leaning in. Ladder plays are when you continue to build off of the original core bet that you have. So let's get into what my first one is here so I can explain that better. You can see I love Steph Curry to go over 5.5 assists, minus 109 on Caesars. 8+ assists is the ladder play. That's the first ladder play. I'm going 0.3 units on that. So for me, that's $30, right? 8+ assists plus 265 means the $30, if hits, would pay about $79, $80 because it's about 2.6 to 1 on my money, right? So for the 8+ assists at a better of juice there, 2 plus 265, we'll just dwindle the units a little bit. And then a double-double plus 850 on DraftKings, 0.1 units. So that's $10 for me to win $85 back. And why I am doing all of that. He's averaging a ton of assists. I love the assists with him. I love the matchup against Sacramento. I love how much he loves killing Sacramento. And I love the way that Mike Brown is going to try to trap him. So all of those things lead to Steph Curry assists, right? That should say in 10 of 11 games without CP3 on the second bullet there, he's gotten at least 6 assists in 10 of 11, not 10 of 111. And that's because CP3 has been out now for, 11 games on this season, and he's been out for the last roughly 7 for the Dubs since he got hurt, right, about 7 games ago. And Steph has just skyrocketed back into the point guard position since that time. And we've talked about this multiple times if you've been paying attention on the show here, that Steph Curry without Chris Paul is back to being the real point guard. And teams are going to try to force the ball out of his hands, knowing that he's really the only deadly offensive player that they have left in terms of one-on-one basketball. There's not many other guys that you're as scared of, although Andrew Wiggins is awaking from whatever coma that he's been in. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But for the assist for Steph here, like I said, the Mike Brown trap defense is going to be a big part of this. Mike Brown, former basically defensive coordinator of the Golden State Warriors when he was their assistant coach alongside Steve Kerr, he ran the defense. And that's what he does now in Sacramento when he gets a guy like Steph Curry, traps him as soon as he gets over the ball over half court. To be honest, not many other guys get played like this in the entire league, but Mike Brown does play Steph like this a lot, right? Like every time they play him, both times this season, he's done that as well. And in the 2 games that he's had versus Sac this season, he's either gotten 10 dimes or 10 assists, 10 boards rather, as you can see there at the bottom, or he's gotten like 8 dimes. So I do think he's liable to get a double-double with either the assists or the rebounds. It's plus 850 if you want to get him at 10+ assists, which is the same number as the double-double. But the possibility of him getting the 10 rebounds is live. Like, it's not completely out of the question. He did it against Sac this season already in the last game. So if that happens again, great. I'm not saying Steph's going to be getting a ton of boards. I don't believe in that necessarily, but it's the double-double at plus 850, right? It's better to just take the double-double than the 10+ assists because you have the opportunity for the rebounds, and the books don't care about Steph's rebounds. They're at 3.5, so they don't think he's going to get a double-double with rebounds, but it's possible, so we throw the double-double in there. All right, we move on to Andrew Wiggins here to go over 12.5 points. Some of you are going to just look at this and move on, and I get it. Move the hell on. Totally fine. But I do think that we're getting ahead of Wiggins arising from the dead, which he's been all season and basically since last season. The 12.5 points, we get 1 unit for minus 115 there. That'll be what, about $86 back on our money. And Andrew Wiggins is the king slayer, man. Really, truly loves playing the Sacramento Kings. And granted, a number of his games, most of the 10 games that I have listed here, were before he just sort of dropped off the face of the earth. But this is still regular season games. I know he was awesome in the playoffs, or not awesome. He was decent in the playoffs at times against the Kings, but more importantly, like, he's just gone off in the regular season. And that's what this game obviously is. So he's averaged 18 a game in those last 10, averaging 15 field goal attempts, including earlier this year when it was still questionable whether or not he wasn't really the man of any kind. He was still playing 26-ish minutes to start the season, and they played in November, right, when Wiggins was still in the midst of sucking, to be honest with you, because for the first 37 games of this season for Wiggins, he was shooting 11 shots a game, barely, like 10.5 shots a game, and only connecting on like 40%, 41% of those shots, right? Awful to start. Over the last 4, we've seen that tick up, and that's also in part because CP3 isn't there. There is a bit of a correlation between him getting minutes, him getting points, and Chris Paul not being around. And that's been the case for the last roughly 4 games. It's also been Draymond being out, but they didn't trust him at the beginning of the Draymond suspension. They just started trusting him back into 28 to 32 minutes over the course of the last 4 games. So we are going to get ahead of this because he's also gotten 12 points a couple times over the course of his last few games where he didn't meet this number of 13 that he needs tonight. Granted, he's only done it a couple, like 3 times over his last 5 now that Wiggins has gotten the 13 points that he needs tonight. But even in those 2, he got 12 points one time. He didn't take any shots in that blowout loss the other night that they took. They took 6 field goal attempts. If he's going to be up at about 13 to 14 field goal attempts, I'm good with him at 12.5 points. Getting about 3 free throw attempts, nothing special, but at least the 3 free throw attempts will help us get over the 13 points as well. If he makes 5 twos and gets the 3 free throws, feeling pretty good about that, right? So this is a good spot against Sac for him because he loves playing them. Sac gives up a ton of points to the wings, more power forwards, but also small forwards, and Wiggins will be attacking the basket in this one against the weak Domas Sabonis defense. So let's go with the 2 dubs here with the assist for Curry and the points for Wiggs. And then we're going to go with some unders. So I'm going to start with Daniel Gafford, under 17.5 points and rebounds, full unit on that. He's playing Utah. Washington fired their coach roughly 30 minutes ago, right before I started recording, which only made me like this bet more, to be honest. I think there's blowout potential in the back-to-back for them against a good Utah team who has been awful on the road. I get it. They just got absolutely manhandled by the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans, and now they're in Washington. Historically bad defense at home this season has Washington. I mean, like 125 points per game to their opponents playing at home. They're awful. 118 to the T-Wolves last night. This Jazz team is going to come in and play fast. If the Wiz want to play fast, great. If they want to slow it down, even better. Gafford probably isn't long for this game. I mean, if Walker Kessler comes in, which I don't know why you would keep him in for too long in this game, like maybe you want him in there to dominate down low because the Wizards are absolutely terrible against centers, and I get that. But his minutes are super sporadic. I don't know when Will Hardy's going to play Walker Kessler or not. I do know that, like, if Walker Kessler is in here, this is a beautiful lock of a bet. If he's not, it's still a very good bet because even without Walker Kessler in there, Utah is limiting centers to the 4th fewest rebounds per game. The points per game would be a little bit lower if Walker Kessler was getting more minutes. At the time of the season when Walker Kessler was getting like up around 28 minutes per game, the Jazz were limiting centers points a lot more. I could see Walker Kessler playing in this game, not because you feel the need to stop Daniel Gafford, but like it is a nice thing to just completely dominate the weakest part of this Washington defense with your player who's best down low overall. Markkanen's doing just fine down there, by the way, as well. He's had a pretty good defensive season on top of everything else that he's doing well on offense. So for Gafford, though, there's just no volume. I really wanted to take this last night. He got 10 points impressively against the Timberwolves, but he got 4 boards. So we got under this last night if I had told you guys about this bet. And I just love that he's taken the 5 field goal attempts per game and all inside 5 feet. And that is where Utah's best, 6th best paint defense and inside 5 feet specifically. And I just don't think there's gonna be enough defensive rebounds for Washington for Daniel Gafford to get over this, right? He's not going to get the offensive boards with how good Utah is at rebounding, a top 5 rebounding team in the league overall. So that's why I'm not really worried about, do they box out centers? Do they not? Like, they do. They're incredibly well. Like I've said, they're 4th fewest rebounds per game, but they also just like don't let you get anything down low overall regardless of what position you are. So I do love the defense for Utah down low against awful offensive Daniel Gafford. All right, last bet here is another under. No disrespect or shade thrown towards Nick Claxton. Dude's been balling, and that's actually why I am targeting him in this one, because he's been balling, and that's why I think it's a bit inflated for him to have 14.5 points and assists. It's minus 125 on DraftKings, going a full unit on that to win back about $80. But the thing about this is they're playing Minnesota. Minnesota on a back-to-back. Okay. They're 2-2, I believe, 3-2 on the season on back-to-back. Their only 2 losses were to very good teams where they gave up a good amount of points to Boston, and they gave up a good amount of points to Phoenix. This is not Boston and Phoenix. This is Brooklyn. For those of you who are like, you're fading Brooklyn again, in a way, it's like, well, they did lose to the Knicks, and Mikal Bridges made me look stupid in the last game where I got him wrong 2 nights ago, but this is not the same bet. This makes a lot more sense. For Claxton, the points and assists you add, by the way, the last thing is the points and assist combo here I like. It seems random, but because Nick Claxton's a center and he doesn't get dimes, so why am I targeting his assists? It's at 1.5 assists for him, and he's at about 11.5, 12.5 points, depending on which book you use to bet on Nick Claxton. So 12.5, 1.5, that's about 14, right? I'm going to feel really good that I get a little bit of a bump with 14.5 instead of 13.5 that they could have made it with the points and assists here. And he doesn't get dimes. Minnesota doesn't give up dimes. They limit the teams to the 3rd fewest assists per game. Not that that's Nick Claxton's game, but it's not like he's going to have an open kick out like he's getting doubled or anything. So that's not going to be open. Like perimeter shooters aren't necessarily going to be open for him. Minnesota's a bit more vulnerable around the 3, but he's not going to take any threes. They are not vulnerable down low, as we know. That's why he's not gone over versus Rudy Gobert in the last 5 games he's played him, which the last 2 were when Rudy was with Minnesota and last year, and cleanly under in those. The only over was a random game with the Nets when he was on the Jazz and they were playing really fast paced in Utah. But Nick Claxton needs assists to score, and that's a big part of this. His assists aren't going to be there, and I don't think the assists for other guys to get him the ball on lobs and things like that aren't going to be there because Rudy Gobert's not going to allow it, right? 3rd best field goal and 3rd fewest field goals made inside of 5 feet. All the points in the paint are needed for Claxton, and it's just not going to be there for him against Rudy Gobert in this one. Same thing with the rebounds. He could get rebounds. They're at 11.5, which is high, but Claxton's been boarding, man, a big time. So I'm not as confident that everybody can just keep him off the boards all the time, but the points and assists staying low, I like a lot. All right. So that is all the time I have for you guys. Let me run through how we're going to do here on Thursday night slate. Top right, you can see risk 4 units, max profit that we could win back here is 4.9 units. That's actually incorrect. We are risking 4.3 units and we can win back 5.1. Forgot to update that. My apologies. But we are risking 4.3 units and we are going to win back 5.1. All right. Over 5.5 assists for Steph Curry is the core bet. We're putting a full unit on it. We're going 8+ assists for plus 265, 0.3 units. And we're going a double-double for him, plus 850. Both of those are on DraftKings, 0.1 units. All right. Andrew Wiggins, over 12.5 points, minus 115 on Bet365. We got a unit on that. Daniel Gafford to go under 17.5 points and rebounds. And we've also got Nick Claxton to go under 14.5 points and assists. Let's get it tonight, y'all. We are now back to up 0.2 units on the week. I will have that stuff for you as I continue to move along here and show you guys how we do each week, how we do each month, and all that kind of stuff. I haven't told anyone to subscribe to the page yet. Please do so. Like the video if you would. Jump in the comments. Had some great comments from y'all yesterday. Really enjoyed talking to you guys there. Bring the shade. I don't care. We could talk about the bets I mess up, and if we like the bets, then we'll talk about those too. But let me know what you guys are playing. We'll be having some fun in the comments and on social media, all over Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Land Your Bets. And until I see you next, happy betting.